And so I gave it to him. And I was surprised that in my life, the oil continued to flow. And if the vessel is there and it's willing, then the Lord will fill it. And so in my life, I started to look out and I saw the miracle of God filling my life and using me when I thought I was empty. I could be empty. It's a cool little trick, isn't it? It's the old pickpocket in me. I still love little tricks and magic things. This is just a joke and a trick for you. But God did it for real. He takes a little bit of what we give. Listen, Fonda, in your life, He takes what you have and He uses it. You know? Gary, unbelievable, the history, you know, that you're speaking about. He takes FCA from these guys founding it 50-some years ago, and He develops into what we see today. I am so encouraged to be here. The first time I heard the gospel plainly and clearly was at FCA. Coach Helm said it, I want to take you to a camp. I said, what are we going to do there? He said, play sports. I said, I'm in. You know, I went, we played sports, but then they would stop, and this professional athlete got up from the Minnesota Vikings and shared his faith in Christ. And I couldn't believe it. This guy really, that's the first time I saw a personal relationship, and that's why I got excited about knowing Christ. FCA. So ever since then, I said, after I came to Christ, I said, anytime FCA needs me, I will try to serve FCA. Even though my ministry is much different, I do something else in sports. But FCA, I believe, can change young people's lives like mine and all the testimonies you heard in here. I'm so encouraged to hear these stories. We could go on, if we're in the Philippines, we could go on all day and just be excited about what God's doing. Now, I was in the Philippines playing professional basketball. My wife, we've been married 35 years, and she came with me as a school teacher, and she started the international school, and I was playing around the country, and one day I played in a little area, and there was an orphanage, so I went in there to play and do some ball tricks and bike tricks for the kids, and they were all naked, and they were all poor, and they were all on cement. So I said, let's give them, donate to them, mattresses and T-shirts. So they have at least a T-shirt on and a mattress to sleep on. And these folks, Filipino friends of mine, said, that's a great idea, Tom, and I gave them the money, and they donated it. I came back 2 weeks later to visit the kids. They didn't know I was coming back. No T-shirts and no mattresses. I said, what happened to my mattresses and the T-shirts? Well, what had happened is the people who run it had taken them home for their kids and sold the mattresses to make money on their own. What they do in the Philippines in a government orphanage is, it's a pork barrel project. The person who runs it puts most of the money in his pocket, runs it just at the bare minimum that it's actually there so they can justify it for the next year's budget. I just was so infuriated. Impulsive is the word we were looking for. I was so, you know, hyperactive and impulsive are very close partners. And so I said, yes, and my friend said, yes, what? I said, we ought to start our own orphanage. And they said, okay, how do we do that? I said, I have no idea. And they said to me, Tom, we have land. We'll donate the land. I said, okay, let's start on that. And through a series of God events, we began an orphanage, Karen and I. We moved in there, built our house to live there. As I missionated around the world playing basketball and playing professionally, but we started to raise kids there. And the first two we got, Mary Rose and Mary Grace. They had scars around their wrists. And the first girl came to the gate, and she was in trouble, you know. And I said, come on in. We fed her, we bathed her, we deliced her, we dewormed her. We fed her, and we loved her. And after about 3 weeks, she was in terrific shape, getting better. And she said to me, I have to go away for 1 day, Uncle Tom, 1 day. And I said, you know, it's not a good idea. My gate's open, but I said, well, 1 day, okay. She was 8 years old. I mean, she'd come from the streets, so what's another day? She promised she'd never go away again after that. She brings Mary Grace with her back the next day, same sores around the wrist, same situation, and it's her sister, 2 years younger, and we start delicing and deworming and feeding her. And they never left each other's side. And the story came finally after months. They told me their dad was a policeman, handcuffed them to the bed, they were abused, and I knew he'd come looking eventually. And he did. He came to the gate one day, so I have the 2 girls. I kept them in the house. They're scared to death of him. He said, I want these girls. I said, you can't have them. He said, they're my girls. I said, you can't have them. He pulled out his gun. Thankfully, I had the lock on the gate that day. I said, no, I'm not giving you the girls. You can use your gun, but you'll be in big trouble. You shoot me. So he went and got the police chief and the mayor, brought them back. He said, those are my two girls. And they said, Tommy's got a point. We don't want to, you're a basketball player. Well, no, we don't want to start an incident here. I said, I won't give them the kids. They said, Tommy, you have to. I said, I want to file a case. They said, you can do that to get the kids back. But it would take months or years to get them back. And so I looked at that man and I said, 5,000. He said, 6,000. I said, no, when I turn my back, the offer's finished. And he said, okay, I'll take it. And so I bought the two girls, and I paid them $200 for the kids. They signed the receipts, the police chief signed the receipts, the mayor signed it, and they said, Tom, you need to adopt these kids. And I said, why? They said, because if you don't, you're always going to have this problem. Other people are going to show up wanting those kids, or he'll come back. And use the receipt, adopt them, and then we'll all recognize it. So we adopted the two girls. My wife and I couldn't have children, so we adopted the two girls. Long story is we couldn't stop adopting. And we now have 22 boys and 28 girls. Yeah. And God uses vessels of all kinds and sizes, like you and me. If our heart is open, doesn't He? He pours His Spirit. So even Karen and I, no children, able to bear no children, we're able to have children, plenty of children, and see God bless us, because that's how He pours out His oil. He might start with 1, 2, and end up with 50. God blessed our life so much that we just thought we'd do as many kids as we can. Just like FCA. You invest in a child for Christ, you are never going to be disappointed. Never. 1 Corinthians 15:58 says, work heartily, brethren, for anything you do for the Lord will never go out void. That means it's a sure deal. It's a blue chip stock. Do it. So we said we're going to invest in kids the rest of our life. To finish, one story, 4 years ago, as we were trying to invest in these kids' lives, I was asked by a businessman in Cleveland, Tom, I want you to go and ride in this bike ride. Because as I grew older and retired and stuff, I ride a bike for my exercise. Like my mom made me run, my wife makes me ride. And so I do, and I can ride sometimes long miles. And he said, there's a ride of 66 men from Astoria. It's a little bit of a race from Astoria to the Mississippi River. 2,500 miles in 26 days. There's one off day. So it's 100 miles a day. I said, Jim, why would I want to do that? And he said, because I have 2 men in my business that are 32 years old and they think they can do that ride. I said, well, let them.